Hello and welcome to TK Services. I hope by now you would have subscribed to my channel on YouTube called Concept Canvas. Now, for the benefit of the students and the audience, today I'm going to be discussing a very important critical topic, interest rate parity. Now, the relevance of this topic and the intended audience for this topic is basically the CA final students, and this is for the strategic financial management subject. And of course, it will hold extremely good value for the CS final students as well and for the CFA students. Now, when you talk about interest rate parity, let me first try to give you some sort of a background in terms of coverage that I intend to do today in my video. I will start with the concept of interest rate parity. What is interest rate parity? What kind of a relationship does that hold with exchange rates? Very important, very critical. And can that be exploited, gain currency arbitrage opportunities that could exist within two countries? Now, before I begin, let me kind of give you some background of interest rate parity. Now, if you go back 7 decades, 1947 independence era, there are analysts who report that at that time, the cost of a dollar or the price of a dollar was 1 rupee, or a little more than a rupee rather. Can you imagine? In today's time, this is unimaginable. Dollar costing 1 rupee or a little more. If you come now further in time to 2018, 19, 20s, you have witnessed the price of a dollar to be in the range of 65 to 70 odd rupees, which essentially means that the price of a dollar has appreciated and the price of the Indian rupee has been devalued, or the Indian currency has weakened rather. What could be the reason for the appreciation in the dollar, which is the US currency, and the weakening of the Indian rupee, which is the Indian currency? Of course, there is more to it than the economic conditions that prevail in the two countries, and one of the biggest contributing factors is actually the differential interest rates between the two countries. Let me illustrate that to you with an example as to how interest rate parity should hold, and it should therefore prevent any possible visible potential arbitrage opportunities that could exist between the two countries because of differential interest rates, and how exchange rates will move in a direction that offset any such interest rate differentials. That is the context. So let me quickly illustrate that to you so that it's absolutely clear. Now, if you look at, let me draw a hypothetical example for you. Now, let's say in India, we are talking about India. In India, the interest rates are 12%. In US, the interest rates are 7%. Does this ring a bell in your ear immediately? Yes, it does for me. What it tells me is, if I'm smart and if I want to really make some arbitrage profits, what I am going to do is I am going to borrow, let's say, $100,000 at 7% from the US, bring those proceeds into India, convert that into Indian rupees, and invest that in the Indian markets and get 12% interest. What it helps me to do is it helps me to earn an interest arbitrage or interest differential opportunity of 5% which exists between the two countries. My question is it that simple? And is that possible? Are these arbitrage opportunities actually existing? If not, why? That is the context behind this particular example. Now, the answer to this question is certainly not. Arbitrage opportunities will not prevail to this extent that you can actually earn interest differential between the two countries. Rather, the exchange rates will move in such a direction that any possible interest gain because of the differential in the two countries will be offset by the depreciation or weakening of the currency, and therefore the any possible arbitrage opportunities that existed will actually be eroded right at the outset. That is interest rate parity, my dear friends. Can we illustrate this by way of a formula? Can we do this uh, a little more specifically so that all of you are able to understand? Now, if you look at the forward rate formula, let's say I want to take the forward rate for currencies, and this is the spot rate. So, forward rate will be spot rate multiplied by 1 plus the risk free, or rather the interest rate in the domestic country, divided by 1 plus the interest rate in the foreign country. So I will take this as S into 1 plus RD by 1 plus RF. Mind you, here we are talking about direct quotes. That's where the domestic interest rates will be in the numerator and the foreign interest rates will be in the denominator. Now let's take an example where the interest rate currently, or the spot rates currently, let's start with the spot rate. The spot rate is currently $1 is equal to 64 rupees. That is, let us start with a hypothetical example where $1 is equal to 64 rupees. Let us also assume that the US uh, country is actually paying, or yeah, the US country is actually paying 7% interest, and India is paying to their investors or borrowers, it is charging them 12% interest on currency. Now, do you see an interest rate differential? Of course it is. If I were to find out what is the forward price or 1 year forward rate based on this formula that you see here, this formula, what should be the forward rate? I'll do that on my calculator. It should be 64, it is the spot rate, into 1 plus interest rate in the domestic country, which is India. So 1.12 divided by 1 plus interest rate in the foreign country, in this case US, which is 1.07. So 64 into 1.12 divided by 1.07, which is 66.9907. So I'm going to make a note of this. This formula is going to yield for me a 1 year forward rate of $1 is equal to rupees 66.9907. That is the 1 year forward rate which this particular formula gives you. Now let us try and apply this forward rate. And what does this actually signify? Now ideally, if this is going to be the forward rate, it basically reflects the zero arbitrage price of a dollar 1 year from now, which means it actually eliminates any possible arbitrage opportunities that exist between the two currencies. And I will illustrate that to you by way of an example. Now let's say I borrow $100,000. Okay, going back to the same example, let's say I borrow $100,000, and because I borrow it in the US, I am going to be borrowing this at 7% interest. What do I do with this dollars? I immediately convert this at the prevailing spot rate. You know that the prevailing spot rate is 64 rupees per dollar. I am going to convert this at the prevailing spot rate to get 64 lakh rupees. And I'm going to write this here, 64 lakh rupees. What will I do now? Going with my earlier intentions of exploiting interest rate arbitrage, I am going to invest this in India at the Indian interest rates of 12%. If I do that, at the end of 1 year, I should ideally have 64 into 1.12, which is 71.68 lakh rupees. At the end of 1 year, I will have 71.68 lakh rupees. Okay. Now, what am I going to do? Remember, when I had actually borrowed this money 1 year back, I had also entered into a forward agreement to buy the dollars at the 1 year forward rate, which we had calculated to be 66.9907. So I'm going to buy the dollars at this price, 66.9907. How many dollars am I going to get with this? So with 71.68 lakhs, I should ideally get 1.07, so which is basically $107,000. So I'm going to get $107,000 with this amount of rupees. Now, with this $107,000, what am I going to do? I am going to use this entire money to repay the dollars that I had borrowed. $100,000 at 7% annual interest, which means I have to give back to the bank from where I borrowed this $100,000 of principal plus $7,000 of interest. So the entire amount is repaid to the bank. Did I pocket any money? The answer is no. I did not pocket any money. Why? The reason I did not pocket this any money whatsoever is because of what I explained, interest rate parity. The difference if you see the interest rate parity formula, what has happened? In India, the interest rates were 12%. In US, the interest rates were 7%. Because of higher interest rates in India, this led to weakening of the Indian currency. And any potential arbitrage that existed because of interest differential was offset by the weakening of the Indian currency. And hence this particular investor or market player was not able to gain any arbitrage opportunity. And we also proved that this price that you see here, 66.9907, is actually a zero arbitrage price, which means it actually eliminates any arbitrage opportunity. Okay, now let me further explain to you what happens if this particular price is overvalued or undervalued. Now let's start with an example where the forward markets are overvalued and the 1 year forward rates are actually, so I'm going to take the 1 year forward rate. The 1 year forward rate is currently prevailing at rupees 69 per dollar. Now if you compare this to the zero arbitrage price, where the zero arbitrage price was 66.9907 per dollar, the forward rates or the forward markets are clearly overvalued. They are clearly overvalued. So what are you going to do? It's only logical, therefore, that this is the strategy that you're going to build. And the strategy is, I will go short. In which market? First of all, I will go short on the dollar because it is the dollar which is overvalued. So I will go short on the dollar in the forward market, because since the forward markets are overvalued, it is only likely that the prices are going to fall in future. So I'll go short on the dollar in the forward market and I will go long. Therefore, I will just take the opposite position in the spot market. So I will go long on the dollar in the spot market. This is going to be my strategy. Now, because I have to buy the dollars in the spot market, I have to buy the dollars using Indian rupees. So let me start therefore with 64 lakh rupees. Okay, So this is what I am going to start with. And with 64 lakh rupees, where the spot rate, as you know, is currently for $1 is actually equal to rupees 64. That is the spot rate. So with using this spot rate, I am actually going to have $100,000 or $1 lakh. Okay. So with 64 lakh rupees, I have now used the price of a dollar is 64. So I have actually used this to buy the dollars. If you see the strategy, long on the dollar in the spot market. So I have executed the first part of my strategy to buy $100,000 or $1 lakh at the spot rate, prevailing rate of 64 rupees per dollar. What am I going to do with these dollars? I am going to invest these dollars in the US markets and earn 7% interest, which you know is going to be the rate in the US. And after 1 year, I should therefore have $107,000. Now, what am I going to do with this $107,000? Remember, 1 year back when I had when I had gone long on the spot market, I had also entered into a forward contract to go short on the dollar in the forward market, which means I had also entered an arrangement to sell the dollars at a price of 69 rupees per dollar, which was the prevailing 1 year forward rate 1 year from then, which is now, and therefore I am going to sell these dollars, $107,000 at a price of 69 per dollar. And how much am I going to fetch? I am actually going to fetch $107,000 into 69, which is 73 lakh and 83,000 rupees. So I'll write this at 73.83 lakh. Now what happens to the 73.83? Remember, I had borrowed 64 lakh rupees in the Indian markets at 12% interest. So I need to pay back to them 64 into 1.12, 71.68 lakhs. So out of this money, 71.68 lakh rupees is minus because I have to repay this back to the bank, and the remaining 2.15 lakh rupees is the plus. So this is what you have made by exploiting the arbitrage opportunities that existed. Remember, in this case, the forward markets were clearly overvalued and therefore you took the advantage, and this phenomenon is called as currency arbitrage. Let us now also see if this is possible if you take a position when the forward markets are undervalued. So if the forward markets are undervalued, let's assume that the 1 year forward rate is actually 62 rupees, which means a dollar is going to cost you 62 rupees. Therefore, the logical strategy that you are going to follow is as under. I am going to go long. Okay. Now, before you decide on the strategy, you must understand the movement of the prices. It is clear that the dollar is undervalued. Therefore, it is also clear that the price of the dollar is going to increase. Since the price of the dollar is going to increase, I will go long now, long on the dollar. In which market? In the forward market. And I'm going to take just the opposite position. That is, I will go short on the dollar. In which market? In the spot market. Which means my first strategy is to sell the dollars in the spot market. So let me start by borrowing $100,000 this time at 7% interest in the US markets. The moment I sell this $100,000, I sell it at the prevailing spot price, which you know is 64 rupees per dollar, and I am going to get 64 lakh rupees by selling these dollars in the spot market, and I have executed my first strategy. My second strategy is also to buy the dollars back in the forward market at a forward price of 62 1 year from now. Until then, I am going to invest this money in the Indian markets at 12% interest. So after 1 year, I should ideally have 71.68 lakh rupees in my bank account with the interest. So that means along with the principal investment of 64, I have earned interest of 7.68 lakh rupees in 1 year, and I have 71.68 lakh rupees in my bank account after 1 year. And now is the time to execute my second strategy. And my second strategy is go long on the dollar in the forward market, which means now I'm going to use this money to buy the dollars at what price? At this price that I had contracted, 62 rupees per dollar. So how many dollars am I going to buy? I am actually going to buy 115,613 dollars. So when I use this money, I was actually going to buy, I have been able to buy 115,613 dollars. That is what I am able to buy. With this 115,613 dollars, there are two things that I need to do. Firstly, I will repay my loan, and to repay my loan, I need to pay $100,000 of principal and $7,000 of interest. So I need to pay $107,000. The remaining $8,613 is what I have pocketed. This is what I have earned. This is my plus. This is what I have earned because of the prevailing currency arbitrage opportunities. Now let me go back to the slide and let's see if I have been able to cover what I intended to. So I have explained to you the context of interest rate parity, how interest rate parity prevails, and how the exchange rates move in a direction to offset any potential interest rate differential that exists between the two countries. We have also illustrated an example that if you use the interest rate parity formula to arrive at the 1 year forward rates, and if you execute an arrangement of our contract at that rate, that is a zero arbitrage price, and you will not be able to make any money. Then we try to see the relationship between the interest rate parity along with the exchange rates, and then using that for the final topic of exploiting any potential currency arbitrage opportunities. We discussed two cases. The first one was where the foreign currency was overvalued, the dollar was overvalued. What positions did we take to make money out of the potential arbitrage opportunities? In the second case, we discussed whether forward prices were undervalued or whether the dollar was undervalued, and therefore what positions we took to gain any or exploit any currency arbitrage opportunities and make money. With this, friends, I come to the end of this topic, interest rate parity, and I have covered three most important, significantly important sub aspects of this particular topic under the subject foreign exchange management. I hope you enjoyed my video. Do subscribe to my channel Concept Canvas on YouTube and keep watching more videos. I'm going to come up with a host of new videos every week for the benefit of the students. Happy learning. Thank you very much.